So last weekend, millions of people participated in the No Kings protests all across the US, with marches even in Canada, Mexico, and Europe. While a lot of people were facing tear gas, baton bludgeoning, or just arrest, what I witnessed in a more isolated corner of Los Angeles was still unsettling. My girlfriend and I chose to join a quieter part of the International March at Beverly Garden Park, hoping for a more peaceful experience away from the massive downtown LA crowds that were, policed by a mixture of the LAPD, National Guard, and the US Marines. But by the time we arrived, the crowd had thinned down and there was a small group of maybe 10 to 20 people that were still there, holding American flags and signs that said things like "honk for freedom" by the side of the road. We joined the group there, but we were warned that a group of kids had been harassing and antagonizing the demonstrators for hours, and I watched these 5 young teenagers approach a woman holding a sign. One was recording the others on his phone, while another kid loudly suggested, "Hey, what if we push her over? Would that be a good video? What if we steal her sign and rip it in half? Actually, what if we grab her by the Would that be good content?" They were obviously trying to provoke people and cause discomfort. Imagine someone stood next to you and talked about whether physically assaulting you, stealing from you, or sexually assaulting you would make for a better video. They moved from person to person through this group, invading personal space and even using racial slurs to try to get a response, at times getting just inches from the person they were trying to upset. One protester started recording them to kind of document the harassment, and the kids immediately turned on him and yelled, "This guy's recording kids! That's illegal! You're gonna get in trouble!" And the guy put his phone away, not really sure whether that was true or not. The kids' parents, standing behind the demonstrators, watched with smiles and smirks on their faces, and disturbingly seemed to encourage this behavior. The situation escalated when the kids said a couple of racial slurs and sexual slurs while getting too close to another woman, and I believe she kind of pushed him back and told him to go away, in our eyes asserting her right to personal space. One of the kids yelled out something like, "I'm 13, that's assaulting a minor," and said they were going to call the cops on her. She looked a little nervous, but didn't believe she'd done anything wrong, especially considering how bad the harassment had been over the past several hours. At that point, someone called the police. I'm not sure who. In my interview about it, I had said that we'd seen one of the police cars that pulled up and turned the lights on and was talking to the kids that had been harassing everyone. And we hoped this was the end of their antics. However, instead of reprimanding them like I'd expected, the teens showed the officer something on their phone. By then, I think the woman who'd pushed them back started to wonder if she actually had committed a crime, so she seemed to get nervous and left the group of protesters. One of the parents yelled out, "She's getting away!" And I saw her being chased by the guy in the jacket over there, the bald guy in the jacket. So she broke into a sprint as this man chased her across the park. The crowd followed the woman over, concerned for her safety and not sure what this man would do if he caught up to her. Then we saw her fall over as he was chasing her through the park over this way. Things moved very quickly at that point. And then we came over and saw that they had called fire department, paramedics, and 8 police cars? Yeah. And they handcuffed her behind the back. The parents basically cheered and congratulated their kids on a job well done. And it became evident that they had kind of orchestrated this whole scenario and had essentially weaponized their children against adults. Seeing that kind of manipulation was chilling. These parents had not only encouraged their kids to harass and antagonize adults, but had done so for hours in the hope that an adult would physically hurt them enough to be arrested. I wondered what kind of parents would hope an adult would hurt their child just so they could get it on camera and get them in trouble. I wondered why the police hadn't seen that as child endangerment or even child abuse. Honestly, at first it was hard to feel compassion for the kids that did this, but I had to realize that they're most likely acting under parental influence, and that kind of makes the situation even more tragic. I wonder why they'd try to exploit their own kids and what kind of long-term impact that would have on those kids. I couldn't imagine growing up with parents that cared so little about my physical well-being. But at the end of the day, I don't know what happened. I don't know what crime the woman was charged with, if she was released. I don't even know her name. What would you have done in a situation like this? I usually like to talk about stuff that's far in the past, stuff that people aren't going to get upset about or worry about. But this kind of felt too important to not say something about.